And exclusively with us is a co-founder and CEO, Travis Kalanick. Travis, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
All right, so you're here in Hong Kong. It's a bit of a late market for you, given that you've opened up in many other Asian cities. How do you take on our taxis? I mean, we're very cheap, very plentiful.
Well, I guess another way of asking that question is, do you eat at McDonald's every day?
Well, maybe I do.
Well, hey, look, it's not for everybody.
Okay.
And so if you like to have a nice experience, one that's reliable, whether it's raining or whether it's rush hour, and you want an S-Class to pick you up instead of maybe a shoddier vehicle. How
much more would it cost in Hong Kong than the regular taxi? Let's say?
Oh, it's not going to be that much more, but it's going to be, 1.5x, 2x in that neck of the woods.
Depending on demand and supply, of course.
Depending on demand and supply and depending on the type of trip, etc.
Okay, so, how much growth do you see here?
I mean, we see a huge amount of growth, right? Again, the way we look at it is that, Hong Kong is a stylish city, right? People express themselves through fashion, they go to nice restaurants, but ultimately they have choice in almost everything they do in the city. But in transportation, you really either can go to McDonald's or you can have your own private chef. And there's very little in between. I think Uber was really looking for that sort of fairway right in the middle, and we actually think that's the largest part of the market.
How important is the Asia Pacific for Uber at the moment compared to other regions?
I mean, it's massively important, right? I mean, it's all about people living in cities and being able to get around those cities efficiently, right? And
with the traffic situation with many of them, nobody gets around at all.
Well, I mean, there are cars. People are still getting around in cars. That's why traffic is there. And if you're going to be in a car, you should do it most efficiently, most conveniently, and most comfortably. And so there's a lot of people in Asia, and that's why Asia matters to Uber.
So, Travis, you're trying to unlock a key demographic as well while you do this, don't you?
I don't know what you mean.
You are going for the upper middle class, the middle classes.
Well, look, what we do is we always start with our Uber Black product, which is sort of a high-end product. If you push the button today here in Hong Kong on our official launch, an S-Class is going to come and pick you up, right? And that's a nice experience. And we start there, and then we work our way down into more affordable, sort of cost-effective choices as well, so that when you open the app, you can choose the sort of mode of transportation that you like. You have that choice. It depends whether you're going out on a date or whether you're just maybe getting an errand done in the middle of the day.
Why do you hate taxi drivers?
I don't hate taxi drivers.
But you've called them names before.
No, I haven't. No.
You don't dislike them at all?
No, in fact, in some cities, a vast majority of the drivers on Uber are former taxi drivers. I mean, Uber is not just about choice for consumers. Uber is also about choice for drivers and a way for them to make a much better living than being in a taxi. Now, there's choice words I've had at times for the taxi industry.
That's what I'm referring to, really.
That's significantly different than taxi drivers.
Okay.
I think taxi drivers in many ways are oppressed.
Okay, let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
Why do you hate taxis?
I don't hate taxis, but the problem is that in many ways they don't provide choice for consumers, and they've often lobbied city governments to restrict choice and restrict supply and restrict convenience for people who live in those cities.
Okay, that's the key here. But many people have criticised you, saying, what about the insurance? Am I insured if I get into one of these cars here? You have reassuring words, don't you, about this?
Well, look, we're working with only licensed vehicles here in Hong Kong, right? So there's actually a licensed limo industry here in Hong Kong. That's who we're working with. And so the same kinds of folks that work with, some of the higher-end hotels here in Hong Kong are the folks that we're working with as well.
Would you provide indemnity as well? You have an overall insurance policy?
Well, as part of the licensing scheme, they have insurance.
Yes.
Of course, we have our own insurance on top of that, but these vehicles are insured to a far greater degree than any taxi you're going to get in this city.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how it's a supply and demand model, right? Yeah. So if you've got Christmas Eve, your prices are going to go up, aren't they? And you could end up paying quite a lot of money for a taxi. I mean, I think Jerry Seinfeld's wife complained that she had to pay $415 just to drop her kids off at a bar mitzvah.
Well, look, I think the Seinfeld family's probably doing pretty okay for themselves. I'm not too worried about them.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve is actually one of the cheapest times on the system.
New Year's Eve, though, on the other hand.
New Year's Eve, on the other hand, is like, look, just like a champagne bottle might cost a little bit more on New Year's Eve, an Uber will as well. But the key is that when you can't get a taxi in the city because everybody needs a ride, you can open the Uber app and you will always get a ride.
Travis, what do you reckon the company is worth now?
Well, look, we did a funding round a month ago.
Fidelity in Washington, I believe.
Fidelity, Wellington, BlackRock. We had a number of folks involved, and they. The pre-money valuation was $17 billion. We raised $1.2 billion on top of that.
So we're talking $18 billion or thereabouts,
yeah,
according to that.
That's correct.
So when do you become profitable?
We're a private company,
yeah.
And so the great thing about being private is I don't have to answer that question.
Of course, that's the other question you're not going to answer is when I ask you when you're coming to the market for an IPO.
Well, the other thing that happens when you raise $1.2 billion in private markets is that you don't have to go public, right? And so until it becomes a strategic imperative for us to go public, we're just not. And what we're focusing on right now is growing the business, not getting liquidity.
Okay, so that brings me on to, is there an exit strategy, or does there need to be an exit strategy?
Look, our business is growing real fast. You know, for me, as co-founder and CEO of Uber, this is a labor of love. And so I'm not here thinking about how I'm going to cash out. I'm thinking of building something beautiful and really useful for cities around the world.
Travis, very quickly, last 10 seconds,
yeah.
Which city do you regret going into, and which city do you think was an absolutely awesome move?
Well, look, all the cities we've gone to, I'm glad we have gone to. We're well over 140 cities at this point. There's only one service in one city that we've ever rolled back on, and that was actually Vancouver. But every other city we've rolled out, we continue to operate. We're just business is going gangbusters, so we're pretty excited about the overall opportunity.
Travis, absolute pleasure talking to you. Now, when you are in town next, please come round and we'll have another chat to see how things have gone here.
Fair enough. Very good.
Travis, thank you very much indeed. Travis
Kalanick there,
the CEO and founder of Uber.